You're listening to the Millionacres Podcast. Our mission at Millionacres is to educate and empower investors to make great decisions and achieve real estate investing success. We provide regular content and perspective for everyone, from those just starting out to seasoned pros with decades of experience. At Millionacres, we work every day to help you demystify real estate investing and build real wealth.
Hello, I'm Deidre Woollard, an editor at Millionacres, and thank you so much for tuning in to the Millionacres Podcast. Today, I want to talk a little bit about analysis paralysis, because I think that happens to just about anybody when they're thinking about getting started in real estate investing, because it's so easy to think about it and read books, but not dive in. And sometimes I think we all need a little inspiration. So the inspiration today comes from my guests, Kyle and Lauren Clugston of Rentals to Wealth, and they're here to share their journey with us and inspire prospective rental property investors to take that first step. And one of the things I like about their story is they've just been really focused and cautious. And, you know, they show that you don't have to take this big risk to get out there and make money in real estate. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having us. We're so excited.
Excited to be here.
Yeah. Awesome. So I was looking at your story, and one of the things I really like is you just had this really slow and steady approach. You've been at it since 2017. I think you just closed on your 6th property. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, bringing us to 10 doors.
Nice. So why was that slow approach the right way for you?
So I've just always been very risk adverse. And especially in the beginning, real estate seems risky, especially if you don't have other investors or people in your family or in your circle who are doing it. And in the beginning, it was really just a way to help supplement our retirement. Not necessarily to retire early, but obviously if you get into real estate, once you're in it, you realize how fun it is and addicting it is, and your goals grow vastly quite quickly.
And our first 2 properties were funded with our savings. So after we depleted a lot of our savings on the first property, it took us a little bit to get some money back into savings, and then would fund that second purchase and then renovation. And it wasn't until our 3rd property we started utilizing another strategy like private money, where it kind of opened a lot of doors where we could start adding more properties to our portfolio a lot quicker.
Definitely. And we don't have goals or dreams of owning, millions and millions and millions of dollars and, hundreds and hundreds of units. And so this kind of slow, methodical approach, I think, jives with our goals and drives with our risk tolerance and where we want our life to be both now and in the future.
Great. So did you start investing near where you already lived?
Yeah. So one of the easiest things to do when you start real estate investing is to utilize your primary residence as an asset. And so what we did is we house hacked, which is basically you take your primary residence, and whether that be a single family home or for our case, a 2-family home, and we rented out the other unit. So it's a way to kind of like tiptoe into real estate investing, get your, get into it with a little bit less risk and a little bit less funds, because since it is your primary residence, you have the advantages of lower interest rates and lower down payments.
And then because it was a house hack, we wanted it to be in a place that we wanted to live. So not only were we investing, but we were also lowering our living expenses to be able to live in an area that we wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. So that was how we chose that area, really was where we wanted to live.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. On our team, we've got, I think, 3 or 4 people who house hacked as their first investment. One of them just bought his first property with his wife, and they're going through that first renovation process and having a lot of fun along the way. But now it seems like you guys are using the ever popular BRRRR method, which is buy, rehab, refinance, and repeat. Is that correct?
Close. And there is rent. You got to make sure
yes,
rent it out.
That's the 4. That's the extra R there.
Yep.
So was that your plan when you were starting out, or did you just figure you'd do the one house hack?
It's funny because where we started out, it's not where we are now, like where we thought we were going to be and what our strategy was. We thought we were going to invest solely in small residential multifamilies, and that would be it.
We thought we were going to buy 1 duplex a year for 10 years and just be really slow and thoughtful about it. So technically we did BRRRR our first property, but it wasn't a perfect BRRRR. And I don't think we knew what that meant at the time. And so basically, yes. So we bought a property, we renovated it, we rented it out, and then we did refinance to recoup some of those costs. But because we didn't go into the first deal thinking that we were going to burr it, we didn't necessarily get that perfect burr. But yes, as we moved forward, we realized the power of burring. And basically the lore of it is that once you have this seed funding, whether that be your own money or private money or hard money even, if you do the burr correctly, and for easy number's sake, let's say you buy a property for $50,000, you put $25,000 into it, and it appraises for $100,000. You could then go to a bank afterwards, put a conventional loan on it for 75%, and get back all of the money you had. And you just recycle that over and over again. So it's a way for people to grow their portfolios rather quickly. And it is something that we realized and had success with on property number 3, and is a strategy that we have been and will continue to implement as we grow our portfolio.
And if people have the savings, the beauty of the burr is that the ARV is usually a little bit higher than that 100 mark that Lauren just put out there for that example. So you're actually able to recoup even more, which then would be used as a down payment on your next property.
So is the perfect burr defined as making that 100%?
Making a profit would be great, but technically a perfect burr is that you have zero money in the deal. You've paid back either yourself or your lender the purchase price and the renovation and the closing costs, and you have zero money in the deal, and you're still making cash flow each month.
Excellent. So in doing that, one of the things that one of our team members that's doing the house hack, he has his own spreadsheet, and I've noticed you guys are very transparent with your numbers. How has that kind of helped you? Has it helped you stay accountable by putting those out there?
Definitely. We first started being transparent with the numbers because that's what I wanted other people to do for me. When we were starting to learn, I was like, I appreciate that you don't want to give too much information, but it's hard for me to fully understand the concept without seeing the numbers and seeing it in pure practice. So we started doing it, one, because I hoped other people would do it. And two, exactly what you said, to hold ourselves accountable. There were times where we would go over on a renovation. I'm like, I don't want to tell people we went over on a renovation. And Kyle's like, you have to, if you want to be transparent at one point, you need to be transparent throughout the whole time. And it's been really cool to see people reach out to us and say, we're really glad that you share the downs, not only the ups, because it's not always, cash flow and rainbows all the time. There's a lot of setbacks.
And then it's multi-beneficial, because as we document our journey, not only because we're writing it down, it's ingraining into our memory a lot better. But we're also documenting, price of materials, and that's making us better investors. That we could walk into a property and know exactly what the cost of renovation is going to be by the time we leave the door. So in documentation, we're learning it a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I want to talk a little bit about you guys doing your own renovations. I was on a call with one of our team members today, and we were talking about house hacking, and he had just installed his first toilet flange, and there were some problems along the way. So you guys have done some of the renovating yourself, but you're also using contractors. What's that whole journey been like for you?
It has saved us. I can't even tell you how much money, being able to hire just our own subs, but taking on a bulk of that renovation ourselves. We started off not really knowing how to plan a renovation, and now it's like second nature to us.
And we always say, because people will still kind of get on us, like, why are you guys still renovating your own properties? You want to grow and you want to scale. And I do understand that, but we're at a point similarly to when we started, where right now we're leveraging what we have and we have time. We don't, we're obviously making money with our properties, but we're reinvesting it back to buy more. We're in this growth phase. And so if we could leverage what we have now to create more wealth in the future, we feel like that makes sense for us. But we are at the point now where we are DIYing some things that make sense for us, and then hiring out some lower level tasks or things that we feel would make the project more efficient when our time can be best used somewhere else.
So before you started this, what was your level of DIY experience? And did you end up having to do a lot of looking at YouTube? What has your process been for learning some of this?
Yeah. So, it's pretty funny because what's holding up our microphone is just a bunch of books. Black & Decker has a great line of books, YouTube. But I grew up in a house where my dad just did all the work on the house that needed to be done. So it was little tasks. You had
a very figure it out family.
Yeah. And it was just learning, and I'm best learning hands-on. That's why the analysis paralysis is a perfect example that only so much could be learned from reading books and reading forums and things. It's not until you're in it that you're going to learn the biggest lessons.
Mm-hmm. And then I had no construction or DIY experience at all, I would just say that I'm really good at following directions. So whether that's assembling IKEA kitchen cabinets or Kyle just telling me what I need to do,
I love
I'm
that
a good
she
helper.
loves assembling IKEA kitchen cabinets, because that's like my nightmare.
They do not make it easy.
No.
So when you were getting your first house hack, were you looking for a property that needed some work, and were you ready to take that on?
Definitely wanted something that we could create value. I don't want to say we didn't have the money to buy something that was turnkey move-in ready, but we saw the value in buying something that needed work, forcing appreciation by doing the work ourselves, and then having a nice margin or upswing at the end. And so we were definitely looking for something that needed work. Our first property ended up being a HUD foreclosure. So that required a lot of work. And I would say, I wouldn't say it's been our biggest renovation, but we tackled a lot considering it was our first one.
It was not an easy property to
No.
be the first property that you buy, for sure.
Yeah, because one of the kitchens, so originally before we had bought it and way back when, it was a single family home. Along the way, somebody legally did convert it into a duplex. But when we got it, the second floor unit that they deemed a kitchen was really just a gas line poking up out of the floor and a sink. And, we had to add in everything else. So It was definitely a great first experience, and we had a lot of fun doing it.
So as a HUD foreclosure, does that mean it was an as is?
Definitely as is. They wouldn't make any repairs. They wouldn't do any seller concessions. And then even more so to the point where the utilities had been off for a few years. And in order for our bank to fund it, the utilities had to be on and inspected. But in order for the utilities to be turned on, we had to have a pressure test done.
Yeah, they had to put a pressure line on all the water lines.
Pressure gauge,
and it had the whole pressure. Well, the radiators were broken, so it took the whole pressure.
But we had to pay for that to happen. So we had to pay, I think, like over $1,000 to have this test done, just to have the utilities turn on before we even closed on the property.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. That was nuts.
So that's pretty hard for a first time buyer, first time house hacker. How did you deal with that? Was it stressful? Did it make you ever second guess anything? How did you kind of get over that?
I don't think we ever second guessed it, but I will be completely honest and say that I had HGTV rose colored glasses. I thought we were going to come in, we're going to paint agreeable gray on all the walls, we're going to lay nice floors, put up white kitchen cabinets. It's going to be so pretty. And I remember there was a day where we had to write a check to our plumber for like $6,000 or something. And I was like, this is so annoying. We are spending so much money on things that no one will ever see. And at the time, it was super frustrating. Now I've learned that investing in the infrastructure and the foundation of each property is beneficial for us as property managers, because it prevents maintenance issues down the line. But at the time, I was very unhappy about it.
And that's one of the things that we do first, is take care of those, what we consider capital expenditure items, which is like the waistlines, but it's everything you don't see, but it is one of the most costly items. But because we self-manage, we're taking care of our future selves in doing that.
Oh yeah, it's definitely what I call a gift to future you, to not have to deal with that later. But you're absolutely right. It's not the sexy part. It's not the fun part. It's not picking out tile. It's the least attractive part of it. And with plumbing and electrical, you find that a lot of times you can't do it yourself. Has that been your experience? Did you find that some of that you just have to turn over to contractors?
Yeah, for sure. Especially because we buy the houses in our own name. So I act as the general contractor, and then I hire the subs out. So those subs need to be licensed, and they need to have a stamp. When I hand permits in, a lot of times they have to be stamped, and they have to be licensed in order to have that stamp. So yeah, a lot of that work does have to be done by a licensed subcontractor. Have
your house hacks all been ones that were duplexes, or were you doing any conversions?
No conversion. So we hear people doing those all the time, but New Jersey housing code and zoning enforcement is quite difficult to rezone a property. So we've never done.
They just won't do it.
Yeah, we've never done like a single to a two family. We hear about all these cool ADUs.
Two families to one family, they'll do.
Yeah,
but not one to two.
I'm hoping that zoning becomes a discussion again, because I feel like multifamily zoning was starting to happen in certain cities, and then the pandemic happened and a lot of those conversations stopped. But, given the housing issues that everybody's having, it seems likely that there are going to be some of those conversations, maybe not in New Jersey, but certainly happening around the country. Which brings up another question of mine. You guys are probably watching the market the same way I am, and housing inventory is just insane. And trying to find houses, I know flippers and investors are having such a hard time. The person on our team that's house hacking, it took them a lot of tries to get their property. You guys had a direct mail campaign, and I wanted to learn about that because I thought that was pretty smart, sending out letters to try to find the next property that you wanted to invest in.
We had seen a few other people do direct mail campaigns on a very large scale. For example, they were sending out 1,000 letters each week. And we just felt like, how can we compete against those people? And we thought, well, maybe we don't send out 1,000 letters per week. Maybe we only send out 20, 30, or 40. So we decided to be very specific. Let's be the exact opposite of the We Buy Houses people. And let's be Lauren and Kyle, your neighbor down the street who maybe wants to help solve a problem for you. So we went driving for dollars and then pulled a very small list of properties that we 100% want to buy. Because sometimes when you pull a super large list, there's probably properties on there that you're not even really interested into, and you're wasting money and time mailing to them. So we got a list. I believe it was like 46 addresses. And we did a printed letter with a photo of us and a hand addressed envelope with the idea that when it comes in the mail, we really want you to open it. If it's hand addressed, that would raise some curiosity. And out of those 40 or 50 letters, we ended up getting 2 phone calls and then one deal ended up closing. So it was really successful for us.
And that's another thing, is that we send 2 different types of letters. So we send letters to absentee landlords and people that actually live in the home. So if we were to pull a big list and send out a bunch of like mailers that were all said the same thing, they wouldn't get the point across that we're trying to make.
Lauren, you mentioned driving for dollars. Can you explain a little bit of what that is?
Mm-hmm. So driving for dollars is when you get in your car and you start driving around the neighborhood that you're interested in buying it, and you're looking for houses that seem distressed. So that may mean that they're run down. Maybe there's trash in the yard, the weeds are overgrown, the grass hasn't been cut, roof needs to be updated. And what that will usually mean is that either the homeowner doesn't have the financial means to keep the house up and running and may be in financial distress, in which case they might be interested in selling, or you have a landlord who might be a little slumlordish and isn't really looking to take care of their property. You're just looking for an opportunity to solve somebody else's problem in terms that you end up purchasing the property.
And I can guarantee that house that is a landlord, that is a investment property, has gotten housing violations over the years. So that may be a property that they're just sick of getting housing violations and they're ready to dump this place off.
Yep. So we basically drive around the neighborhood, write down a bunch of addresses of properties with overgrown grass. And then we come home, we look up, we see, when was it purchased for? How much did they buy it for? Do they have a lien on the property? Stuff like that. And then we whittle the list down and then we send out our mailers.
And how are you getting that information?
So in New Jersey, there's a free website called njparcels.com, which you just type in an address and it tells you who the owner is and where they live. If you don't have a free resource like that in your state, there are a lot of websites like Deal Machine or PropStream that you could skip trace information. You could get people's addresses and phone numbers. And it technically all is public information. These platforms just make it easier for you to get.
And then once you find that info, you would just jump back onto the MLS. And that's where we gauge like a lot more specific info, like when the property was last sold, with the tax store and things like that.
Excellent. Are you finding that it's a more competitive market right now? I mean, I know the real estate agents that I talk to, they're doing anything they can to shake out inventory. Have you seen that happening in your market?
So much so.
And we're on the West Coast. I mean, I feel bad for people investing in beach towns because it's
the West Coast
absurd.
of New Jersey.
The West Coast of New Jersey. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, the coastline, the beach towns, it's insane right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. Beach towns everywhere are top priority, which is odd. The luxury market too. All of the small towns, the sort of like Zoom town effect has definitely been an issue. You talked a little bit about getting education from books. I know you were also part of an investor group, and it seems like there's a pretty tight crew of investors in your group. Seems like you guys have a lot of fun. Did you start off knowing that group before you got into investing, or did that come kind of later in your career as investors?
We started going to local meetups earlier in our career, but
Yeah,
I
it was
wouldn't.
still in our first property.
Yeah, but it took us a little while to really like be a part of the ecosystem and start actually networking and utilizing the group for the benefit of the group. So basically, we realized that, some people, before getting into real estate investing, we assumed that, like most things, people would be very sacred of their information. And when we went to our first meetup, we realized people love to talk about what they're doing and they love to share knowledge. And we were happy to share knowledge too. So we became really close with other investors in our area in our local meetup group. And we are all about, rising tides raises all ships. There is no way any one of us has enough money to buy the whole town that we all invest in. And so why not help each other out? Share trades, share contacts, share mortgage lenders. So we
share refinance reports.
Yeah, definitely. So it's a really supportive group. And, some people say that one of the things they find so hard about getting into real estate investing is that they don't know anybody who's doing it. And I could totally hear you on that, because I kind of relate it to going to college. If you grow up in a neighborhood or in a family or in a society that going to college is not the norm, maybe you're first generation, then you're probably less likely to go to college. But if you grow up in a family or in a town or in a neighborhood where everyone goes to college, then you're probably more likely to do it. So if you can surround yourself with people who are doing the thing you want to do, you'll be more likely to do it. And that was kind of our mindset. Like, we just need to get around people, because in the beginning, we had analysis paralysis so bad. It was to the point where I was like, we are lying to ourselves, because we're telling everyone we're investors. We haven't bought a property yet. We need to take some action.
And one of the biggest hurdles to get over is finding a team, a contracting team. If you're not a DIYer, like, how do you go about finding those people? Well, that meetup group is a great spot to meet them, because whether they're investors, a lot of the members are contractors or they're real estate agents, and they're out, what a better place to meet clients than an investor group. So you're going to meet all these people throughout that group.
All right. I have to ask, how long did that analysis paralysis phase take for you guys?
So long. So I would say a solid year of us reading, studying, analyzing markets, and telling everyone that we're going to be doing this, but almost 3 years of it really marinating in our mind and thinking like, yeah, that's something we want to do. It definitely took us a little while.
And how long did it take to find the property? Was that part of what took so long?
I would say at the time, it wasn't necessarily trying to find a great deal, because looking back, and I know everyone would say this, looking back, I wish we bought every property that we looked at, because they would all be amazing right now. It's really just not trusting yourself, because yes, like I said, we were going to meetups, we were around other people who were doing what we were doing, but I think we just felt super alone. There was no professional or mentor that we could go and ask and say, is this right? Is this the right move for us? And it was just really scary. And I think it was the fear that really kept us from.
Yeah, there's no book out there. There's no forum out there that's going to tell you whether this property that you're looking at that time is the right deal at this number. So we look back at the properties that we toured prior to buying our first one. And if we looked at it from this vantage point now, it's like, I wish I had that deal back and I would jump on that. But it's having that confidence in knowing that all that reading that you've done, you're making the right choice.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, this is a great place to take a short break.
Like what you're hearing? Get more real estate investing news and advice from Millionacres on Instagram @Millionacres and on Twitter @Millionacres_co.
During our break today, we are excited to have Millionacres lead investment analyst Matt Argersinger here to speak briefly about one of our newest services, Real Estate Winners. Thank you for joining us, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
So what is Real Estate Winners and who is it for?
Well, I like to think of Real Estate Winners as our answer to Stock Advisor in the real estate market. It is a service that provides recommendations on publicly traded real estate investment trusts and real estate companies. So it's a pretty big universe out there. There's over 200 REITs to choose from, and probably dozens, if not hundreds, of real estate companies are in our universe. And we provide regular investment recommendations as well as commentary on the market, educational material. And it's really designed to get anyone who's interested in investing and learning about real estate started.
So is it geared toward new investors or is it more for seasoned pros?
I think Real Estate Winners can serve both. I think if you're a new investor, maybe you're just getting started with stocks and you want to learn more about how to add real estate to your portfolio, great place to start. If you're a seasoned investor and just thinking, okay, how can I diversify my portfolio, maybe reduce the volatility in my portfolio, maybe add some income to my portfolio, then I think Real Estate Winners is a great solution for that cohort as well.
Fantastic. What are the benefits of being a member of Real Estate Winners?
Number one benefit is day one when you join, you get our top 10 investment ideas at the moment. So really right from the beginning, you know what our 10 best ideas in the publicly traded real estate market are. And then going forward on a monthly basis, you'll get a new recommendation, sometimes more than one new recommendation, as well as regular content that we're coming out. We're covering our past recommendations, providing updates, and talking about the real estate market. So it's really the full package.
Perfect. So what do you need to get started?
Really all you need is a discount brokerage account. So if you're used to buying stocks, and you probably already have that. If you haven't bought stocks in the past, of course, just open a discount brokerage account. These days, you don't even have to pay commissions. It's fantastic. So it really couldn't be easier to get started investing with Real Estate Winners.
Sounds fantastic. So how can people sign up?
Sure. They can head over to real.fool.com. That's real.fool.com.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. I'm back with Lauren and Kyle Clugston of Rentals to Wealth, and we're talking about getting started in real estate investing. So I wanted to pivot a little bit because I noticed looking at your Instagram, yes, I Instagram stalked you, is that last year was kind of this reset year for you. And it seems like you're kind of taking your business now really to the next level. So wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what that journey's been like.
I mentioned earlier that our goals and plans have changed significantly since we first started investing. And over the past year or so, we've really sat back and thought, what do we want our lives to look like in the future? And then we reverse engineered that and tried to figure out, well, how do we get there? And we realized that what we were doing will not get us to our 10-year goal. And so we have to change something. And that big factor was that we need to start treating this more like a business and not like a hobby or like a side hustle. So, yes, we are still DIYing some of our renovations right now, just because that makes sense for us in this moment. But the overall plan is to really start outsourcing, to start utilizing more subs, more contractors. We don't respond to maintenance calls anymore. I still do self-manage just because we have it down in such an efficient manner. It doesn't make sense to hire it out, but we really are just having that mindset that we are business people and entrepreneurs and not just real estate investors. And how can we make this business more scalable and more efficient so that we could actually live the life that we're working towards?
And since we did that private money deal, that was an eye opener to, wow, we could really be pumping out properties, double what we're doing now, a year utilizing private money. And if we had contractors just doing everything. For us, our time frame is usually around 4 months, where a contractor could do that in 50% of the time.
Well, let's talk about that, using private money, because I think that's a big step for a lot of people. Now, I noticed you had also, you bought with a home equity line of credit at one point as well. But how has that changed you using different forms of financing?
Starting out, we 100% thought that all we had to use was our own cash and then conventional bank financing. And that's a slow growth. Unless you're pulling in, big six figures, you're going to dwindle your funds down pretty quickly. And so our first investment property that we did househack, we then this past year pulled a HELOC out on. We had enough equity in it. And instead of refinancing, we thought, let's just do a HELOC. We actually closed the week that the pandemic started. So at that time, it was an amazing safety net that I'm so fortunate that we had. But then we started realizing, okay, how can we put this equity to work? And we ended up buying our fifth property cash, if you will, with our HELOC. We were able to put in a cash offer because we just pulled the funds down from our HELOC. We will be refinancing that soon, putting a conventional mortgage on it and then getting our HELOC back. And that was just a great way to utilize equity that we already have to grow our portfolio. And then to circle back to private money, at first we thought doing private money is kind of like asking people to help you out. Like, hey, I have this deal. I don't have any money for it. Would you be open to lending it for me? And that's what we felt like. And now there are people who are asking us if we have more projects come in that they can help fund. So it's a mindset shift change, because now we're creating investment opportunities for people and not necessarily begging for money.
I think thinking of it as begging for money is definitely the wrong mindset. And I can see why that would be a hurdle. How did you find private money for that?
So originally you just start with your friends and family, because private money is a relationship-based business, if you will. It's not like hard money. You can't just like Google private money lender and find someone. So you start with people who you know, like, and trust, and people who know, like, and trust you. And so we just started with our family. So, our first lenders were my parents and my brother. And, you already have that relationship. And so you just make sure you sign some legal documents to make sure everything stays on the up and up throughout. But that's really where you start. And then as you go from there, you now have this resume, you now have experience of doing private money with somebody. You can now open it up to larger people. So you start looking at maybe colleagues, coworkers, friends, or just even people that you meet at local meetups.
And that's like what the documentation was so important, because in all those years of us documenting everything that we did, we basically took all of that with a little bit of new stuff, but created what we call an invest with us packet that we give to potential private lenders. And all that does is that's going to give them an example deal based on the market that we're in and projects that we've done in the past, and say, hey, if this project comes up, would you be interested in investing with us? And a lot of times it's not a conversation between you and them, but it's a conversation between them and maybe their significant other. So that when this property pops up, especially in this market right now, where properties are up in one day and gone the next, that money needs to be available, and those conversations need to have already occurred.
That is a really good point. Wanted to talk a little bit also about automating and delegating. You guys talked about that as well, and I feel like that's an important hurdle for investors. If you want to grow your business, there's that tendency to want to keep it all, you do it yourself, but then you can't scale. So how has that contributed to your ability to scale? And if there are any programs that you've been using, love to hear about those too.
It's definitely crucial, especially because Kyle and I both still work full-time jobs. And so we need to make sure that investing is as efficient as possible so we can still do both. So I could talk to you from a property management point of view, because that's mainly my lane. But basically I utilize right now Cozy.co, which is a property management software. So it collects all of our rents. It does all of our applications. It helps with showings and listing the units, and everything's online. And honestly, managing our properties on the minimum takes probably an hour a month. And at most, if we have a maintenance call, maybe 4 or 5 hours a month. And that's really me just coordinating with a tradesman to fix the issue. And then from a bookkeeping point of view, we use Stessa, which is another online program. And that's been amazing, because I will be completely honest with you. On our first property, we went to Home Depot at least once a day, if not 5. And I was taking all of those receipts. I'm entering them into my Excel spreadsheet. What day did we buy it? What did we buy? What room, did this go through? And it was a total waste of time. And then I realized that I could just set up a business credit card and a business checking account, hook this up to Stessa, and all of my transactions magically appear into this beautiful database that I just go into every Monday, and I assign it to the different properties. So when tax season comes, I can just export a tax report, and it's amazing. So that's been a huge time saver. Then we have also been using Airtable for project management. That's a little less automating and more so just like streamlining management. And it keeps us from dropping the ball, basically.
And then for property walkthroughs, we created a property walkthrough calculator on Airtable. And again, I'll reference back to documentation, just documenting what all of our materials cost, because when we do DIY, that's all we're really accounting for is cost of material. So we can punch those numbers in as we walk properties or potential properties that we're going to put offers in on, and we'll know what those budgets are the second we leave the house.
And exactly what you mentioned earlier about being kind to your future self. We're not doing deals every week or every month. And so there are some things that maybe we only do once a month or once a quarter. And it does take a little bit of time for your brain to kind of remember, like, what was that process again? Who do I have to email? So I'm very big at creating SOPs. And an example of that would be like closing an off-market deal. So as we closed our first off-market deal, every step of the way, I was taking notes. Okay. And after, the earnest deposit check, gets sent, I then need to email this person, and here's their email address, and here's their phone number. And the 4 things that they're going to need from me are the purchase price, the signed contract, and, C and D. And by writing things down like that, it just makes sure that 1, you're doing everything the same each time, so you're never forgetting. And then 2, it's just taking less mental bandwidth, because we have so much going on. I can't remember how I did something last year. And so just by writing it down, you're really just helping your future self out.
I love that. I feel like Airtable is the new Excel. Everyone is sort of moving over to Airtable now.
We're big fans. I feel like it's Excel meets Asana, and it's like the perfect combination.
Yeah.
So do you have your properties, you talked a little bit about taxes. Are they all in different LLCs or do you kind of have it all together?
We currently have them all in our personal names, and we've been doing that strategically for the financing, basically. As we're growing, we are going to be switching them over to LLCs for asset protection, but we are big fans of offensive protection and not defensive protection. So an LLC is great in terms of asset protection for when you get sued. Well, we want to take steps and put things in place to just never get sued to begin with. So that's what we're really focusing on right now, making sure we're doing everything to code, making sure we're using licensed contractors, making sure we're having lawyer drafted contracts with our tenants and with those contractors. So we're really just trying to stay above board throughout. So we never really have to get to that LLC protection part. And then we do have an umbrella policy over top, but sorry, we can see that overall having an LLC as we grow will be important. So we are moving towards that.
And not to say every story is the same, but most of the time when you hear nightmare tenant stories, it probably all comes back to tenant screening. That tenant probably was not fully screened or screened properly. And that was where the downfall was.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because I feel like everyone that I talk to that's an investor kind of has their own method and their own way of determining who that great tenant is. Is there anything that you guys have learned as you've gone through this process that helps you really determine what a great tenant is beyond things like, credit score or employment history?
Two things. One, you can't be emotional.
Exactly.
I believe everyone's story. I'm like, but Kyle, you don't understand. And he's like, they're lying to your face. So not being emotional is helpful. And then two, we count a lot on references. I understand that a credit score doesn't tell a whole story. I understand that things happen and that people make mistakes. So I'm very big at calling past landlords, not only the most recent or current landlord, but also the ones in the past. You might get a more honest picture from them, just because they're going to give you the real details, right? Like, yes, they kept it clean and they always paid on time, or, they were always late, but they always paid the late fee and they left the unit beautiful when they left. So I think having kind of that like personal experience is more valuable and holds more weight than someone's credit score.
And it's important that Lauren said to call past landlords, because if you call their current landlord, they could be such a terrible tenant that they just want them out of their property. So they're like, oh yeah, no, they're such a good tenant, so they move out and you take them. But then also a little bonus to call all those landlords is to talk to other people that have properties that they may be looking to get rid of. They may have large portfolios that they're looking to dump or retire. So that you can create a narrative with them that could potentially lead to another deal.
That is a great tip. That's really smart. I love that. All right. So I wanted to talk about your newest property, was seeing some of your YouTubes about it. And I thought it was a really good example of some of the things that maybe can go wrong a little bit or be a surprise. I noticed that you guys really did your due diligence. You did a home inspection, great, radon test, also pretty common, but you did a sewer line scope. And I think a lot of people don't do that. And I wanted you guys to talk a little bit. Nobody likes to really talk about the sewer, but the sewer turns out to be pretty important if you're dealing with rental properties and investment properties.
Definitely. And there were two reasons why we hit this property hard with inspections. One is we're getting more experience. And so we are learning from other investors' mishaps. I am part of a little group of a bunch of female investors, and one of the girls, she always has sewer line issues. So that kind of came from her. And then two, the seller of this property, he never lived in it. He was rather hands-off. And so he just didn't have a lot of information about the property. No negligence from him. He just didn't have a lot of information to share. And so we were like, okay, well, if he's not going to give us what we need to know, we need to find it out ourselves. So yes, we did a normal home inspection, which comes with the radon and the termite. Then we also did the sewer line scope, and we actually also did an oil tank sweep. And the reason we did those two is because oil tanks are big in this area. And while we thought it was probably disconnected, we saw signs of one that was probably removed. You just never know if there's another one underground, and that could be super expensive. And then with the sewer line, that's something that no one ever checks. But all you need one day is for your tenant to call and say that their sewage backup and all their belongings that they're storing in the basement are ruined, and you need to completely replace the pipe, and it's going to cost $15,000. And this is something that can be prevented if you just spend like $250 during the inspection.
Yeah, that's like a $20,000 fix. Easy to go from the house to the street on a sewer line for them to dig, replace the whole thing. That could be a massive deal breaker.
Absolutely. And I think that, I think sometimes what happens, and I think investors as they go through get better at this, but there's always that problem of emotion and maybe getting attached to the idea of this being your property. And it seems like maybe getting a lot of those tests can kind of get you out of that mindset. Is that something that you found?
I would agree with that. It definitely helps you think of things more at the data and more at the facts and not from an emotional point of view. And like I said in the beginning, I'm not risk averse. I really like protecting ourselves. And if spending another $250 to get a sewer line filled was going to make me sleep better at night and make me feel more comfortable allowing people to call this place their home, I just think that's a good kind of return.
And I love it. We had the tank sweep, and the guy came and walked us through the whole thing, what he's looking for, and then also what we can look for while doing property walkthroughs that may suggest that there's an underground tank, or if there was an above ground tank at one point that's been disconnected. He gave us a bunch of tips on what to look for when we're walking property. So we would have never gotten that unless we didn't have him come out.
Exactly. And not to say that we wouldn't get another tank sweep in the future, but by paying this one upfront cost, we now gained a lot of information to help us be better investors when we're walking properties in the future.
So are the properties that you're looking at generally older houses, and do they have some of those? You mentioned the oil tanks. Is that one of the things that is a concern for you, is that because you're getting older houses?
They're so old. I would say our youngest house is 90 years old.
Yeah, or all early 1900s.
Yeah.
I mean, every single one. Yeah, and that is a huge concern. Our waistlines being, galvanized and being in rough shape. So yeah, for us to be buying these old houses, it's even more important to do due diligence.
Yeah, we're always looking for knob and tube, outdated plumbing, definitely oil tanks, and what's like another big one? The old houses. Oh, plaster and lath. Everything's plaster and lath. There's no sheetrock on these walls.
Any issues with lead paint or anything like that?
We haven't had any issues, fortunately.
Asbestos tiling, like in basements.
Oh, yeah.
Luckily, we haven't had any that have been like crumbling, and they've all been in good shape. So we just do either a coat of paint over top, or we're good. We usually do new flooring anyway, so it just goes right over top of them.
Interesting. Are you also looking at eco-friendly or green? Is that a concern for you at all as you look at renovating?
It definitely is. Like, we try to not only, so going back again, thinking about your future self, your HVAC system. If you have poor windows, poor insulation, and you put in a brand new HVAC system, well, that thing's going to be working its butt off, in the depths of the seasons, really trying to heat or cool the home. So we do try to take that into consideration when we're replacing windows, making them more efficient. And then definitely with like smart thermostats or other smart features, just to definitely make the home a little bit more green.
Excellent. I love that. All right. So as we wrap up, obviously you're a couple doing this together. I think that's one of the things that people always wonder. Couples wonder, like, can we do this together when they're starting out? What have you learned? What have you learned about each other? And what has that been like?
I love that you just asked that, to be honest, because it's a huge hurdle, especially for people. Maybe they're a great couple, but maybe they don't work very well together. We always made the joke that we'd be terrible on Amazing Race, but maybe we wouldn't be, because we do work really well together. And one of the biggest things was we read Traction by Gino Wickman. And one of the things we took away from that book was to have weekly meetings. And that was one of the biggest things, to have a business meeting and then make sure that we're having husband and wife time too. Not have business meetings throughout the day, have specified times to talk business. And
I would 100% agree with that, because I'm the type of person where my brain is going all the time. So that might be 11 p.m. at night, right before we're falling asleep. I'm like, did you call the plumber? Or like in the middle of the day, we're like on the beach with our family. And I'm like, what did that quote come in on? My brain's always moving. Kyle's not like that. He's very much in the moment all the time. And it was creating a little bit of friction that I was thinking about business randomly all the time. And then I would almost get mad at him. How do you not know the answer? He's like, well, I'm on the beach. It's a Saturday. I don't know. And so having meetings, both gave us a space and time to talk. And then also let me know, like, all right, just write it down. You could talk about it on Monday.
The benefit of Airtable and notes. Do you guys do, is it all computer notes for you guys, or do you take physical notes? What else works for you?
It's funny. Lauren is like very much like in the computer, has all the programs and stuff. I'm like very much like notebook and pen. And then our meetings are whiteboard meetings, which is nice because we can then refer back to that thing on Tuesday when we've had, the meeting last Monday. So it's nice to have that physical thing that we can go back and refer to.
And I'll say working together, well, definitely it creates more opportunity for arguments. I would say it also creates more opportunity to really strengthen your relationship. I feel like we are at a point in our relationship where if you are not working towards the same goal together, your relationship just physically can't get to this level because it's not given that opportunity. The fact that we both have the same goals and the same dreams, and we're both working towards that goal together has just brought us a lot closer in other areas.
I'd agree 100% with that.
Love that. All right, last question. You guys just started sharing your journey on YouTube, which I think is always, there's risk in that, but that's also a lot of fun. Why now?
That's a good question. We've been sharing our journey since 2017 on Instagram, and it's been so much fun. And I think what we've realized is that people want to know every detail. And what better way to do that than to bring them along with us while we're doing everything? We bring you with us to the closing table, to Home Depot, while we're renovating, while we're having lunch, while we're fighting. There was an episode a little while back where we got into an argument and I cried. We just try to be really transparent because we like helping people. And if showing you what we're doing helps other people take that one extra step, and then it's totally worth it for us.
And then that's the one thing that we lacked getting into it was what step by step, exactly what to do from beginning to end. So for there to be a little camera on our shoulder as we go about searching for our next BRRRR property, searching for our next house hack, and then everything from the beginning to the end, that is a massive, massive wealth of knowledge right there.
And I feel like we don't like saying, here are the 5 things you should do. Yeah. What we do like saying is, this is what we're doing. If it's helpful to you, that's great. So come along with us.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, both of you. And just a reminder to anybody who's listening, they are on Instagram at Rentals to Wealth. Rentalstowealth.com is the website. So thank you so much, and stay well and stay invested.
Thank you for tuning in to the Millionacres Podcast. I hope you liked today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing through your favorite podcast provider. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop us a line at help@millionacres.com. Stay well and stay invested. People on this program may have an interest in the deals, offerings, or services they discuss that Millionacres or the Motley Fool may have a formal recommendation for or against. Always consult a certified tax professional before acting on tax advice, and do not buy or sell assets based solely on what you hear.